You guys know the drill, what we're doing. Yesterday we looked at John chapter 4 at the woman at the well. Effectively stole Brent's thunder because then he preached on it that night. I did not know that he was going to do that. So, but all the same, maybe it's because we need to hear that passage twice, and maybe even more than that. But today we're going to look at John chapter 5. Today we're going to look at John chapter 5, and just so we kind of review what happened, what we talked about yesterday, was that mercy is not getting something that you do deserve, something that you've earned, something bad that you deserve. Not getting that is mercy. And you can only receive mercy when you are in a position of weakness, and you can only give mercy when you are in a position of strength. And it doesn't have to be just physical strength. It doesn't even have to be mental strength. It could be emotional or social strength. There are a bunch of different ways in which you are in a strong position and someone else could be in a weak position. And that's a position where you can give mercy. And there are also a bunch of positions or a bunch of opportunities where you are at a weakness or at a disadvantage. A simple one to think of would be like the language barrier. If we were in, Marseille, France right now, I would be at a distinct disadvantage. I would be in a position of weakness because I can't speak French. So, and someone who could speak could be merciful to me. Now, typically they're not merciful to you, and they're like, because they're really arrogant. But let me just totally stereotype every Frenchman all of a sudden. And but yeah, they like it when you speak French. But that would be a point. That would be a very simple situation that we could all find ourselves in which we are in a position of weakness, and we need someone to be merciful to us. All right. And we also said that Jesus made it a point that he had to go to places where weak people are. He had to go to places that other people want to avoid. That was a big part of what he did by going to Samaria. He went out of his way, really, to not go out of his way and bypass Samaria. He went through Samaria, and he did so to get this woman and to bring the gospel to her. And then lastly, the last thing we saw is that because she received mercy, there are a couple more things we saw. One, we saw that the way in which Jesus showed mercy, the first thing he did is he dignified and he empowered her. He dignified and he empowered her. And he asked her for something, her to give him something. And that is like the first step in mercy, is to treat people not like projects, but to treat them like people, to treat them like they were created in the image of God, because they are. I'm sorry, we're going to get rid of this right now. This is just killing me. You're welcome. I'm a man of the people. And we saw that what happened is when this woman received mercy, it changed her opinion of herself, her view of herself. She didn't all of a sudden become someone who had not lived a kind of a scandalous lifestyle, but because she had received mercy, she became comfortable with who she is and with who God is. She received a new status. When someone is converted, they receive a new status, and so all of a sudden they're not afraid of their past. They might still regret that they lived in sin, but they're not afraid of their past, to the point that she said, "Come and meet this man who told me everything that I ever did." So that's what we saw the first. And what I really want you to get out of that first day is that mercy is something that empowers the receiver. All right? It empowers and dignifies the person who receives it. If you're giving mercy and you're really just making someone feel like they are getting a handout, or if you're treating them like a project, or like they're less than you, or in a haughty way, then that's not really mercy. That's something else, and we might come back to that later on. So, with that in mind, we're going to read John chapter 5, and I don't have it on the PowerPoint. My son was here earlier. I don't know if you noticed. There was like a 2-year-old running around. He's not quite 2 yet, but so I was going to put it up there, but you're just going to have to listen if you didn't bring your Bible to Christian camp. This is John chapter 5. So this is the next chapter, all right? After Jesus deals with this woman in Samaria, He heals an official son, and then he goes to Jerusalem for the Feast of the Jews. And this is where we're going to pick it up in John chapter 5, verse 1. This is God's holy word. Fashions change, opinions change, our emotions change. People die, new people are born, etc., etc. This thing, it keeps going on because it lasts forever. So I'm going to read this, I'm going to pray, and then we'll see what we can learn. John chapter 5. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now, there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool. In Aramaic, it's called Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I am going, another steps down before me." And Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and he walked. Now, that day was the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, "It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to take up your bed." But he answered them, "The man who healed me, that man said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.'" And they asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, as there was a crowd in the place. But afterward Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had healed him. And this is why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is working until now, and I am working." Let's pray. Lord, you are sovereign. Your providence, your kind providence to us is the reason we're even able to meet here today. And this is a morning, and your mercies are new yet again for us, Lord, here. Lord, as we think about mercy, as we think about meeting people's needs, Lord, as we think about preaching the truth to them in love, Lord, as we consider how you have been merciful to us, Lord, empower us, Lord, dignify us so that we might be merciful to others. Lord, make us more like Christ and less like ourselves. In Christ's name, amen. Okay, now, the first thing I want you to see about this passage is that even though mercy is very glorious, mercy happens in really inglorious places. Inglorious places. Mercy is glorious. Christ's ministry is glorious. What he does is glorious. But where it takes place is a very inglorious place. This takes place at a gate, a sheep gate, by a pool called Bethesda. Now, I am indoorsy. I don't know if you picked that up from the seersucker shorts and the lack of athleticism, but that is, I am indoorsy. I did not grow up on a farm. This might shock none of you. And when I go to a farm, or when I go where there are livestock or animals, I'm always overwhelmed by how much it stinks. Animals smell bad, all right? And this is a place, this place where Jesus is doing this glorious work, is a place where they bring all the sheep in. Now, at the temple was not a great place to go if you were a sheep, or if you were a lamb, because they managed to kill a bunch of those things every day. But if you're going to kill a bunch of sheep every day, making sacrifices, you're going to need a lot of sheep, all right? And so this is the place where the sheep would be herded in to be bought and sold and sacrificed. This is the place where livestock is. So this is a stinky place, all right? Now, probably all of first century Jerusalem stunk to some degree, sewage, pre-sewage systems, all that. But it would especially stink here, and it would be a loud place. This would be a place where, because animals don't stay quiet. Sheep are they're gross and they're dumb. So, that's an unfortunate combination for any being. But, so it's a loud, stinky place. And the other reason I know that this is a place that is not very glorious is because all of these invalids that are here. Because these people were less subtle about we do this, but we take people that we don't want to deal with and we try to put them in a place where we won't have to deal with them. All right? That is like the advent of nursing homes and facilities. Now, if you're older here and you put your parents in a nursing home, that doesn't mean that you're sinning. Maybe your parents don't care. Maybe your parents, you can't care for your parents, you need a full-time, and that's the only way they can afford it or whatever. I'm not trying to say that those are that's a bad thing. What I am trying to say, though, is that throughout human history, we have a real precedent of taking people that we don't know what to do with them and putting them somewhere where we don't have to deal with them. That is something that we are very good at doing. All right. There's a reason why they build interstates over ghettos. All right. There's no interstate over your gated community neighborhood, wherever you live. It's always over a ghetto or it's out in the country, because anyway, that's for another time and another place. But the point is that we're very good at that. And this is a place where it says it was full of invalids. A multitude of invalids lay here. So this is a place where they allowed invalids, the lame, the blind, the beggars, the people who are completely dependent upon other people to give them stuff. This is where those people hung out. All right? There weren't a lot of fun things happening here. There's a bunch of animals defecating and urinating and screaming or bleeding or whatever they do. And there are a bunch of people calling out, asking for mercy and for money. So this is a very inglorious place. When I was a youth minister, for a hot minute in Starkville while I was in school. Maybe my last 2 semesters I did youth. And one of the things that I had the bright idea to do, because I was just a charged up Reformed Christian and I wanted to do some real mercy ministry, is I took these youth, these 7th and 8th graders, and we went to a nursing home and fed old people who couldn't feed themselves. All right? We did it every other Wednesday, and even though it was my idea, every other Wednesday I dreaded doing it. And I dreaded doing it because I don't know if you've ever had to feed a full-grown adult who can't feed themselves, but there's not much glorious going on there. You might afterwards say, man, that was a real mercy, but during it, you were just like, this is so awkward and awful, all right? It will make you question a lot of things. It will make you question your faith to see people in that kind of state. And we did it, though. We did it every other Wednesday for a year. And the other Wednesday, we would just play Nintendo 64 to make up for that. So, and I had a guy in my youth group that didn't have a thumb, and he thought playing Nintendo 64 was really lame. So, I'm serious. I asked him what made our youth group unique, and he said, we don't average 10 fingers a member. He's an awesome guy. Anyway, Jesus is in this place, and it's not a glorious place. So every day, I'm not staying at Laguna Beach. I don't know if you guys have figured that out yet, but I'm just driving in every day. I stayed at Laguna Beach last week, but this week I'm with my family in Seagrove, all right, which is a little bit nicer than Laguna Beach, I'm just going to tell you. And but I've done plenty of time here. This is like my 50th RYM, so don't worry about that. But every day I have to drive from Seagrove, which is pretty nice. I have to drive through Alice Beach. Now, Alice Beach is where you go. To stay at Alice Beach is like $750 or $800 a night. So we're talking about big timers that stay there. It's so nice of a place. I was telling John Stone yesterday, it's so nice of a resort that when I drive through, I'm worried someone's going to be like, you don't belong here, quit looking at this. You're not allowed to look at this. You're just a commoner. It's so nice. There's not a lot of mercy ministry going on in Alice Beach, okay? There's not a lot of mercy ministry going on even at Seagrove or at Rosemary or these really nice resorts. But there's a lot of mercy ministry. There's a lot of opportunity for mercy other places, because other places are where the shameful and the weak congregate. And here we see Jesus. He is in a place, He wants to show mercy, and He goes to a place where He can show mercy. All right? And much like He had to go to Samaria, we find Him in a place that is very inglorious. So if you want to show mercy, it's not always going to look awesome. I'm recording it. Okay. It's not always going to look awesome. Sometimes it's going to, in fact, you might not even be noticed to show mercy. And let me just tell you something, it's probably best when you are trying to show mercy to someone if you do it in kind of a discreet way. If you notice, Jesus deals with this woman one-on-one. He doesn't draw her into a crowd and then be like, look at the mess that she's made of her life. No, He deals with her, he deals with her in dignity. He empowers her. And here, yet again, He is going to this person, and there are a bunch of people that are passing by and things that are happening. There's all these different all these sheep are going by, and people are calling out, and it's a hustling, bustling place. And what happens? And Jesus, in the middle of this humdrum, if you want to say, He is going to show mercy to this guy. But no one's going to notice. He's going to do something that no one's going to notice for a little bit. No one's going to notice until it gets really crazy. And that's true about you too, all right? You want to show mercy to the awkward kid that you know, all right? Or to someone who's in a real, real bad state. Or whoever, whoever. Don't expect to receive a medal or a reward, If that's what you're going for, Jesus has words for you. He says, you've already received your reward. Just like He tells you to pray in secret. But mercy is something that often goes unnoticed. And the problem is when it gets noticed, some tough things happen. So that's the first thing I want you to see. That even though mercy is very glorious, to love someone in their weakness is very glorious. It happens in really inglorious places. The second thing I want you to see is that this man is super duper helpless. All right. Now, he has been an invalid for 38 years. Now, some of you might know someone who is handicapped, okay? Maybe they're mentally handicapped or physically handicapped in some way. And I don't want to make light of that because that is a real struggle. However, I do want to speak very honestly about being handicapped now versus being handicapped in the first century. And to be handicapped now is a freaking cakewalk compared to the first century. Because I want you to imagine a situation in which there are no wheelchairs or ramps or special parking lots or places or special education programs, all right, or prosthetic limbs. All this stuff, they had none of it, all right? If you were an invalid, if you were handicapped, usually you were killed when you were a child, all right? But if you were an invalid, if you were handicapped, you were at the complete mercy of, you were a beggar. There was one opportunity for you. I went to the Mac store a couple months ago, to the Apple store, and a blind guy fixed my computer for me. He was working at the Apple store, and he was like, oh, I'll get that, and he plugged something into the Mac, and it reads to him what's going on, and he fixes my computer. He cannot see, and he solved a problem that I could not solve on my computer, okay? He was like, well, I'll fix it for you, and I was like, hold up, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that you're blind and you're awesome. Let's just talk about that for a second, okay? Can you show me how to do, it was amazing. Well, back then, that's awesome. That was awesome. It was a very humbling experience. It was also very awesome, very cool and empowering to see him just really excel. He knew what he was doing. That does not happen in the first century. There's one career opportunity for handicapped people in the first century, and that's beggar. Go find a corner, lay there, and ask for money. That's it. Pray that someone comes and gives you. So this is a guy who is completely at the mercy of others. And here's what you have to see about this person, is that you are not Jesus in this story. We're going to talk about how you can show mercy, but you are not Jesus in this story. You are the invalid. You are the person who is completely at the mercy. In your sin and in your wreck of a life, and I'm speaking to myself just as much as I am to you, in Kurt's sin and Kurt's wreck, Kurt is an invalid, and he has been one for 33 years. All right? He's been one for 30. He is completely and totally helpless. This guy right here in front of you. And before God, he is completely and totally helpless. Everything that I have, God has given me. Everything. I didn't choose my name. I didn't choose my height, my weight, my eye color, my hair. I didn't choose who my parents were. I didn't choose what my child was going to look like. I'm completely at God's mercy in every way. And this is true for you too. You have to see yourself as the invalid. And again, this is so important for being able to show mercy. Because if you see someone as weaker than you, if you see someone as being in a weak situation because of the choices that they made, then you will just look down on them and judge them, right? You will just say, why didn't you make the same safe choices that I made? Why didn't you act like me? And you will never show mercy to that person. But if you can look at anyone, be it someone with Down syndrome, someone who is a prostitute, someone who is is just a normal guy or girl, but from a completely different culture. If you can look at them and say, look, if it wasn't for, God's providence, I would be just like them. If God wasn't, if you can put yourself in their shoes, then you can show mercy. You have to see yourself as the invalid here. You have to see yourself as the invalid. If you don't think that you're the invalid, then you will never show mercy. If you don't understand that you're in a position of extreme weakness before God and that He has been very merciful to you, then you will never be able to show mercy to anyone. So I want you to see that He's helpless as well. I want you to see the helplessness is not always a result of your choices. Sometimes people make bad choices in life, okay? They make bad choices, like they get a neck tattoo, okay? That's a bad choice every time. They just don't get one. What is it going to look like when you're 90? No one who has a neck tattoo lives to 90, okay? It's clear they're making the choices that are not going to get them to 90 already. But I'm not going to be judgmental for a second, or for my life. Anyway, the point is that sometimes, not always, but sometimes people are in a tough circumstance and it has nothing to do with their choices. It's not because they were raised wrong or because they voted in the wrong party or because they have a wrong ideology. When someone grows up and they're sexually abused by their father, okay, that's not their fault. All right? That's not their fault. That could just as easily have been you. Do you see that? Okay, do you see that is this guy was born an invalid. He's been an invalid for 38 years. Well, I don't know if he was born an invalid, but more than likely, given the life expectancy, this guy has not walked very much, all right, if at all, all right? And it's not like he made some choices, to get that way. So you have to see that sin has affected this world, and you have to see that in order to show mercy. And what it should stir up in you, if you're in Christ, is it should stir up in you a little thing we call compassion, where you look at someone and you see, this person is hurting, and I need to find some way, even if it's a small way, to help them. So Jesus is going to help this guy in a major way, in a way we can't help at this point. But then Jesus asked this guy a question. Now this is, to me, the most interesting part of the passage, because Jesus says, it says in verse 6, when Jesus saw him lying there, and he knew he'd already been there a long time, he said to him, do you want to be healed? And the immediate thing, if this guy was in our generation, I can't help but think that he would have looked at Jesus and been like, of course I want to be healed. I've been an invalid for 38 freaking years. I've been an invalid longer than you've been alive, Jesus, on the earth. Even if he really recognized who Jesus was. So this guy's, is this a dumb question? Is this a stupid question for Jesus to ask? Now, the Sunday school answer to that is no, because he's Jesus and he doesn't ask dumb questions. All right? But why is it not a stupid question to ask? That's the real question we need to ask ourselves, is why is this not a stupid question? It's not a stupid question because when someone receives mercy, we're talking about a radical change. We're talking about a radical change that can take place. And what happens is that when people start to receive mercy and when people start to show mercy, the status quo can kind of get upended. We're going to see the reaction to that next in this passage, but I want you to see that when people start showing mercy to other people, it can change the status quo. And that's a problem for some of you, and it's a problem for me if we really like the status quo. if we're in a position of strength, all right, if we're in a position of strength, why is it that so many people were angry? Well, I'm not even going to go there. That is politicizing, and I'm not going to go there. But some people don't like it when things change. If you're Presbyterian, you more than likely you don't like it when things change. You don't like things to change. You like things to be consistent and easy. And it's easy for you to be that way because being white and being a Presbyterian means that you're probably wealthy and you've got the skin color that allows you to do whatever you want. All right? So, of course, you like it and you don't like change. You want everything to be the same because everything's good for you. But, of course, if you're not Presbyterian and you're not white, you might think, hey, you know what might be cool? A little change. And here's the thing, is that when people start to show mercy, when people in strength start to empower and dignify people in weakness, you know what happens? The status quo starts to get messed up. And all of a sudden we have things like, well, let me just give you an example. I won't hit too close to home. I got to stay out of so many things. I'm very opinionated, but I've taken some of my opinions and put them on the shelf because I want to preach the gospel. But not my roommate, excuse me. One of my groomsmen in college, my groomsman in my wedding, a really good friend in college named Dinesh. His name is Dinesh Kumar Selvaraj, and he is from India. He was a groomsman in my wedding, and he's a groomsman in my wedding. He was converted to Christianity through RUF, through Ultimate Frisbee, really. He started playing Ultimate Frisbee with us, and eventually that led to him being a Christian. So, play Ultimate. And he is from India. He has a dot, not a feather, if you want to be really racist about it. And whatever. Anyway, he's really funny. He speaks like perfect English, but it's in a thick Indian accent. So I brought him home for Thanksgiving one time, and it was really funny to watch my redneck relatives from like Baldwin, Mississippi, be like, "Now what's your name?" And he's like, "Hello." And he's like, "Good. Your relatives, they are very funny." He would always say to me, "Honestly, Kurt, honestly." I can understand him perfectly, but my relatives were like, "Now, what'd you say?" So I come from a real group of rednecks. I mean, some real high-quality rednecks. So, but Dinesh is from India, and in India they have a caste system. That's caste with an E at the end. And the way that works is that you're born into a caste, into a social strata, into a level, all right? Like levels. There's like the lowest level and the higher level, and there's some levels in between, all right? And where you're born, what level you're born, there's no upward mobility. Like, you're born in that level, and that's where you are, all right? If you're born at the lowest level, you don't, this is going to blow your mind, but you don't get to choose what you can do. There are very limited options for you, all right? And they're trying to, like, repeal the caste system in India. They're failing at it, but they're trying. And one of the things they did is they started letting the lowest caste, which are called the untouchables, which is a really awesome name. Don't touch them or you're like forever stained. They're trying to let the untouchables run for office. All right? And so an untouchable, a member of the lowest caste, he won. He was elected to a public office. He was like a comptroller or a tax assessor. I mean, it was just a really small office. So he serves 2 terms. He serves 2 terms as a tax assessor or whatever it was he was doing. And then, when he leaves office, they have a new election for someone else. And the person who happens to win office this time is from one of the higher castes, probably one of the highest castes. When that higher caste, when he won office, he had every single thing in the office where he was going to have to work removed. Every single thing. The only thing that was left were the walls. He had the walls power washed, all right, and he had all new things brought in. Because he didn't want to touch a single thing that this person, this untouchable, had touched for the last 8 years. He didn't want anything to do with them, all right? This is someone who was very comfortable with the status quo. This is someone who thought, I don't like it that these people think that they can be like us. and have just as much power as us. They're supposed to be down there. Don't they know their place? Guys, when you start to show mercy, when you start to empower the weak, what's going to happen is the strong are going to get angry. They're going to start to criticize. So when Jesus asked this man, do you want your life to be completely changed? Do you want to be healed? Do you want me to change your life in a really radical way? It's a real honest question. Because now that this guy can walk, he's going to have to face some issues, all right? He can't just sit on this corner anymore. He's going to be able to do more. But not only that, people are going to look at him and they're going to be critical of him. Whereas they might have felt sorry for him beforehand. Now he's just somebody. Guys, if Jesus comes into someone's life, all right, He is only bringing radical change. He will meet you wherever you are, whether you're white, black, Asian, I don't care. You know, poor, rich, ugly, you know, pretty, smart, dumb. It doesn't matter. He will meet you wherever you are, but He will never leave you where you are. He will change you. He will bring radical change to your life. And if you start trying to live out that change, there's going to be criticism. There's going to be some friendly fire, if you will. There's no such thing as friendly fire, but there's going to be some friendly fire from Christians who are not going to like it that you're bringing those kind of people into our church. I want you to think about that for a second. Jesus asked this guy, do you want to be healed? It's not a dumb question. You want Jesus to just take your life and turn it upside down? You know, it's a legitimate thing that we need to ask ourselves. That's what He does. Look what He did to freaking Saul. You know? Saul had everything going for him. And Jesus was like, boop, boop. You know, He just turned him right over. I also want you to see mercy's power. All right? I want you to see the power of mercy. This is a hopeless case. All right? This guy has been an invalid for 38 years. Like most, I could take any two of you in here probably and add up your ages, and it doesn't add up to 38. All right? That's right, huh? Yeah, that's right. Unless both of you are 19, is that right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, most of you don't even add up. So your life times two, this guy's been an invalid longer than that. All right, and he's an invalid in the first century. There's not modern medicine. But the fact is that even with modern medicine, people who can't walk. You know, it's not like we've come so far that it's like, oh, it's no big deal. We're not to the point where like you get your arm cut off and they give you like some skeleton grow, like in Harry Potter, and all of a sudden you've got another arm. It's so cool, I know. We're not there yet, and we probably will never get there, but just keep holding out hope. This is a hopeless case. And Jesus reaches down to this man, and He radically changes. He snatches him out of nothing, out of nothingness, and just the lowest possible situation you can be in, and He brings him up. And what I want you to see about this is that there's not a single person that is too far gone that mercy can't reach them. There's not a single person. You might be thinking, the devil will get in your ear and he will tell you that no one will ever love you, that people just put up with you because they have to, but that you're annoying and that you're not pretty enough or smart enough or athletic enough and that no one likes you. He will tell you all that stuff. He will get in your ear and tell you that Jesus doesn't love you because you're a freaking loser. This guy's a loser, all right? This guy's like the lowest of low, and Jesus reaches down and like that, He changes this guy's life. And what I want you to see is this, is there is no one that is so far gone that mercy can't reach them. It doesn't matter how sinful they are. It doesn't matter how awkward they are or how stupid they are or whatever problem they happen to have. All right? It doesn't matter how racist they are or how, think of John Newton. It doesn't matter how arrogant they are. Think of C.S. Lewis. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to God. All right? Because God, just like He can blow through that woman's defenses. She tried to put up that theological wall yesterday, and Jesus was like, sorry. Boom. And just blew it up. He will blow through anything to get who He wants to get. All right? That's the power of mercy, is that anyone who receives mercy can be a new creation. Anyone. You can be from anywhere. Guys, we have really limited our scope. All right? Where are the special needs kids at RYM? You don't think the gospel's for them? There was one at junior high. It was awesome. In the middle of the, I'm going to brag for a second on my students. We're in a megaret competition. It's one of these silly megaret competitions where you like jump into two inner tubes and then try to swim with these two huge inner tubes on your. It basically makes it like almost impossible to go fast. So even like Olympic level swimmers are like doggy paddling. Like Michael Phelps is doing like this, trying to get through this race. So we're like smoking this other team. All right. They're like we're like down and back. We're looking like Ryan Lochte right now. They like and they're struggling. But they have a boy with special needs. I don't know what his special needs were, but I mean, anyway, they had one on their team, and my guys stopped. Even though the race was over and they had won, they made the official not blow the whistle. All right, they told the official not to blow the whistle, and that guy jumped in. And everybody on our I did not tell them to do this. I wish I could take credit for it, but I cannot. Everyone on our team and everyone on their team stood up and gave a standing ovation to this guy as he very slowly and with the aid of a counselor made his way all the way down the pool in these ridiculous tubes and then all the way back. All right? That is mercy. Okay? Is that guy ever going to win a race swimming against a normal person? No, he's never going to win. Every time I can beat him, and I'm super unathletic, all right? But he's in a position of weakness, and he is not so far gone that the gospel can't reach him. And don't think for a second that that doesn't matter. That stupid things like just silly nothing things like cheering for him and for making him feel like a normal person and not like a project. Don't think for a second that doesn't matter. Jesus says this guy's not a project. Let me just make you whole right there, and he does it. Guys, he can do that. And if you think you're too far gone, guess what? You're not. The only thing holding you back is your pride. Last thing, well, before I say it, yeah, it is the last thing. Awesome. Uh-oh. I lost it yet again. Doesn't matter. Well, where are we here? Oh, man. What just happened? Hold on one second. I'm sorry, guys. I'm supposed to look all technically like savvy or whatever, but I think my computer just like tried to shut down or something. It doesn't matter. The next thing we're going to say is, oh man, look at that! It really did just everything went black. Let's just do this. Let's just. Oh man, the Apple's not supposed to do that. The last thing I want you to see is that the criticism. Okay, look right here. After he heals him in verse 11, verse 12, they asked him, who is the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? Wait, I'm sorry. Now the day was the Sabbath. Look in verse 9. Now the day was the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, it is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to take up your bed. But he answered them, the man who healed me, that man said to me, take up your bed and walk. And they asked him, who is the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? Now, how many of you go to a restaurant on a regular basis? Like there's a particular restaurant that you go to. You go to one? Heard?
I go to various restaurants.
But is there one that you go to all the time? Where do you go? What? Really? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Be merciful.
The same Waffle House every time? Okay. Have you gotten to know some of the people that work there? Okay. Like by name? Okay. So all right. Does anyone else go to a restaurant? You go to a restaurant regularly? Okay. That's all.
The lady gets us free food.
Okay. She knows who you are. You've known her. This is a good lesson, just a really quick lesson. The people who work in like fast food stores, they're made in God's image too. So don't just treat them as if they're, there to bring you fries, but maybe treat them as if, they have dignity, because they do. But yeah, so at your Waffle House, you know some of the people that work there. Do you ever notice that there's some of the same customers there too? You do. Okay, and how many years have you been going to the same Waffle House? A couple, 3 or 4? 2 or 3? Okay. Guys, he's only been going to this Waffle House somewhat frequently for 2 or 3 years, and he recognizes a bunch of the people. Do you think if some guy sat on the same corner for 38 years, going on 4 decades, that someone might recognize who he was? All right? that someone might recognize him and be like, oh yeah, that's the guy I pass every day who sits in that same place because he can't move. All right. That guy is up and walking around for the first time and going on 4 decades. And the first thing that the freaking Pharisees ask him is, it is the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to have your bed up. All right? I mean, like, just what is going on right there? My mind is blown. Like, before we're too judgmental about them, okay, before we get too judgmental for a second, this is exactly how we are. All right? This is exactly how we are. Have you ever heard the phrase missing the forest for the trees? What it means is that you don't realize, you don't see the whole forest because you're just focused in on an individual tree or a group of trees. And here's what happens with you guys, and here's what happens with me, is that we find one thing that we're really confident in, or one thing that we really like, one area. Instead of getting in your face for a second, let me get in your parents' face, all right? Your parents, you know what your parents are super insecure about? However you're being educated. Are you in a private Christian school? Are you homeschooled? Are you go to a public school? Your parents are insecure about it, all right? Just let the pastor at their church preach a good thing about the other kind of education, one that they didn't choose, and watch how defensive they get. They get super duper defensive about it because they're very insecure. And the truth of the matter is it doesn't matter if you go to public, private, homeschool. I don't really care. You know, that's not what saves people in the end. It's not what makes people Christians. What makes people Christians is when Jesus Christ interacts with them in a real way. But the point is they're super insecure. And if someone threatens the choices that they've made about your education, if someone says, oh, well, you don't really love your kids if you send them to public school because you let the state, you know, or if someone says, oh, your kids are homeschooled, well, they're just going to be socially awkward, blah, 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 blah. You know, like, if someone, they get tense. And they don't like that at all. And we're just like that too. When someone threatens or says that what we like is not important, or what we have based our righteousness on, this little mound that we've created so we can stand on it to look down on others, if someone says that that's not important, oh man, we get so mad. And these Pharisees, they have built their life upon keeping this law, and they see this guy, as ridiculous as it sounds, they see a guy who has not walked for 38 years. I've not even lived 38 years yet. All right? I'm 5 years short. He has not walked for 38 years, and he is up walking around, and there's no way in the world, Waffle House example as evidence, that one of them did not say, wait a second, this is the guy over there. And he even tells them that he's been healed. He even tells them, and they're like, well, who told you to take up your mat and walk? Because they're so focused on these individual things, on their own righteousness, that they can't see the miracle that is Jesus Christ and what He's done for this man. My question to you is this. Not my question or my challenge to you is this. There are things in your life that you're so focused on that you've completely missed the boat on Jesus Christ. There are a ton of you in this room and at this conference who've grown up Presbyterian and were catechized, and that's awesome. I'm going to catechize my child, you know. And you've been, the 5 points of Calvinism. You can tell me all about tulip, and you know all about Presbyterianism. There's some of you like that in here, and you've completely missed the forest for the trees. All those things are good. I'm not saying they're bad, but you've completely missed the forest for the trees. And when you see radical mercy injected into someone's life, the first thing you think about is you go to some conference and someone raises their hand while they worship, and you're like, regulative principle. I don't like that. You've completely missed the forest for the trees. You've completely missed it. Jesus shows this man mercy. He shows this man mercy. And there are people that are so focused on their own righteousness and their own thing that they completely miss this great miracle. My question to you is this. What great miracle that's happening right now through the powerful operation of Jesus Christ and His Holy Spirit, what great miracle are you completely missing because you're so focused on something else? What are you focused on? Are you like these Pharisees? Are you so concerned with the little things that you've crafted in your life? I've got to keep my Instagram followers up. I've got to post the right kind of Twitter post. Whatever it is that you, and I'm preaching to myself right now, whatever it is that you think makes you important and separates you, you just watch Jesus challenge that. You just watch Jesus challenge that, and you watch what happens in your own heart when you totally miss the boat. Hey, we're not done yet. Thanks. When you totally miss the boat. I think we might have. Let's see. Yeah, it is time. All right, there's more, but we just have to stop right now. What I wanted you to see today is this, is that mercy happens in inglorious places. And not only that, but mercy empowers those, and it changes the status quo. It changes things up so that things are not the same when mercy comes. And lastly, that no one is beyond mercy. There's not a single person who is beyond mercy. Let me, wait, what's your name with the W right there, you? Steve what? Stephen Hooks is going to pray for us, and then we're going to go.
Father, thank you so much for the privilege of being challenged by your word and by your servant. We pray that you would give us this type of heart in your heart. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Sorry I went late, guys. All right, let's figure this out.